So the first thing we're going to do with the Corvette, we're going to take off the steering rack. In order to get the steering rack off, we've got to remove the front splitter. Obviously, we got to take off the front tires, and then we will dig into the steering rack. And then once the steering rack is out of the car, that'll let us help free up the motor to get it out. It shouldn't take too long to get the steering rack out, usually about an hour once you kind of know what you're doing and got your tools together. And that's what we're going to get started on.
Powered by Ocho.
Now with the G-Speed front splitter radiator kit, the splitter's held on with these 8 bolts here and here. So that's what I'll take off next. From there we're going to have to take off the sway bar, which I have the FAD heavy duty sway bars. And then we will be able to get off the steering rack. But like I said, it's always, I like to lower down the engine cradle, and then I drop that down as far as I can on the threads, and that just makes it easier to get everything. There's your daily dry sump system, and then the daily pumps up there. You can see the oil leaking. That's from the number 7 gave out on us, and the crankcase pressure pushed oil out of everywhere that it could. So that's why we're going to rebuild it bigger and better. The one thing I didn't talk about in the other video was coilovers are the Penske dual adjustable with the G-Speed valving in them. So that's our suspension. So for me, I use a 9/16 on the back side of the sway bar, and it's an 8mm Allen socket I use. And then I just put it right back on, and then I have it for next time. So then the sway bar mounts with these 2 bolts. There's one on each side. The other side's removed. Just got to do this side here. And then again, I like to put the bolts back in here. I know where everything goes, but this way I don't lose them. I don't have to search for them. And since this isn't going to be touched for a little while now. It's one less thing I have to worry. So I'm going to try to show you this. Now, you got to take off the ABS pump bracket. You got a bolt here and a couple bolts here. This bolt is also for the steering rack itself, this one here. And then you've got to loosen up your power steering cooler. And then you've got a bolt here. Now that interferes with my dry sump pulley. I can get this off. That's why I did it this way instead of obviously the other way. And then that'll give you access to get to the top of the power steering. I don't think I can necessarily get to it from here to show you. I can show you a little bit, but it's these two fittings right here. Let me try to get up here. Yeah, I can't see it, but anyways, it's a fitting that's right here, and then the other side over there. Those are the two that you take off. I have a 18 millimeter wrench that I made specifically for this job. Now, because I'm going to be going to the Bosch M5 ABS system, I don't need my ABS pump anymore. So because I don't need that anymore, I'm going to be able to remove that. And by removing that, I'm going to have a lot more access now to my top of my power steering rack, which is good for me, but still doesn't make your guys' job easier when you do it. But what you're going to do now is take off your ball joints. You can see mine's ripped, so we'll fix that while we're up there. And then I got to do the other one. Now, once I get that done, we will, I'm going to take off my power steering pump because that's going to be a lot easier to access the power steering rack once that's gone. So I've gone ahead and taken the ball joint out of here on both sides. That's just a pretty easy job. You can use the expander, you can use the pickle fork. That usually is what destroys these, but that's fine. We'll get rid of those and put on some new ones. And from here, I think I'm going to start figuring things out just because my order of operations is going to be a little bit different now. I'm going to go ahead and take these off, take this out, and then I'll get rid of these two bolts here for the power steering cooler, and then I'll go to the top side. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take off this side's power steering rack bracket. No, I'm not. I'm going to go to the top. I'm going to take the pump off, take it out, get rid of those brake lines, get it out of the way completely, and we'll see where we are. So, I went ahead and took off the power steering, or the ABS pump. Now I'm working on this front bolt for the power steering rack. It's two 18 millimeter. And once that's loose, it comes off pretty easily. And we'll switch to the other side. those two are, well, one's out, one's loosened. I wanted to take this one all the way out so that I could get that bracket out of the way. I'm going to lower the car back down, then I can get to those hoses. Because I'm removing this, I can do it the way I'm doing it. Without removing this, though, you have to come up through the wheel well area to get to those two hoses. All right, so for when I do my steering racks, I took a 18 millimeter wrench, I cut it in half, almost in half. I then ground down both sides of this almost like a crow's foot, and then I took the other box end side and I notched it to fit around the hose. What this allowed me to do was get up inside the wheel well side, and then I can do little turns at a time to get those hoses off of the steering rack. Now, because I took off that bracket, I don't have to do it that way. I'm going to be able to go straight into the top and take it off that way. So that's what I'm going to get started on now. Okay, so if you're coming from the bottom, you made this one so that it would fit around the hose. Now, because I don't need to do that, because I am coming from the top, then that's all I have to do. And it's just small turns, but once it's loose, you should be able to take it off with your fingers. And it's always handy to have a couple plugs, because you probably will drain some fluid. So there's one. I can fit a regular wrench in here since I'm coming from the top. So as I said earlier in the video, we got to loosen up the cradle bolts. So what I like to do is zap it down to I just do one at a time, get it down to where it's still got a few threads on there. So I just freed up the other sides. Pull it out. right, so the steering rack's out of the car. Next thing I did off camera was drain my oil. So next episodes are probably going to be about taking the exhaust off and draining the other oil out of the AN lines and kind of just checking things off as we go, and then we'll be pulling the motor. It shouldn't take too long to do that. Usually it takes a couple hours to get the motor out of the car. So I hope that you learned something through the power steering pump or power steering rack. Maybe that's how you can get yours out easier. I know your application is going to be a little bit different because you could potentially have a stock vehicle. So, but at least you've seen it done in a different way, and maybe it can help you tackle the job yourself as well. So until next time, we'll talk to you guys later.